everyone, and welcome to Billabong High International School Presents Not by the Book 2.0, a platform in which we speak to inspiring people who have built their own paths and chosen careers beyond the conventional route. Today, we have Vedika Anand here with us, a former NCAA Division 1 tennis player from Wagner College, who now works across athlete relations and sport operations at a global level. She also used to work with organizations like the Professional Tennis Players Association and continues to share insights about careers through her platform at Fit with Ved. We're really excited to hear about your journey and learn more about the opportunities that exist in the world of sport beyond the court.
Thank you so much for having me, Myra. It's a pleasure to be here at Billabong High International School, and let's get into it. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Vedika ma'am, we're really excited to have you here with us today, and we'd love to begin with a few questions about your story so far.
Hit me. Let's go.
So every journey has a starting point. What would you say was your introduction to the world of sport?
Well, my dada used to play tennis when I was growing up, and I used to be sitting on the court next to him, watching him play at the age of 4. So that was my initial look into the world of tennis, which I don't even remember. My dad still plays tennis, and we just come from a very sporting family. So it was a natural that as the elder child of the house, I was put into multiple sports as a kid. And of course, because of the history of, dada playing and my dad playing, everyone wanted me to be a tennis superstar. So I started playing at the age of 6. I hated tennis at the beginning. The first few years were absolutely horrible. I hated being in the sun. I hated the drills, which you and I were just talking about off camera. But slowly, once competition was introduced around the age of 9, I started loving tennis. I loved the competitive nature. I loved being out there, winning, losing, all of it. So I love the drama of sports. So that was my initial look into the world of sports. And I think school plays a big role in it as well. I went to school in Delhi and I was part of multiple sports at the same time. I really liked being part of a team sport. I played basketball in school. So the initial years of schooling for me were really a development into becoming an athlete.
So out of all the sports that you played, how has tennis always been like your favorite? Like what has made it your favorite?
I think I like the idea of being able to be my own individual, making decisions myself, because tennis is such an individual sport. You're out there all alone. Nobody's telling you what to do. Nobody's helping you out. If you make a mistake, your teammate can't help you. Your coach can't even talk to you. So the ability to adapt to problems and solve problems by yourself on the court was super interesting to me. Now, I didn't start doing it well until much later in life, once I developed as a tennis player, but I thought it was cool to kind of learn the idea of problem solving on the court. And you kind of learn to do that off the court also. When I had problems in life, stressors with school, board exams, all of those things, I always go back to the skills that tennis taught me on the court and replicate those off the court as well.
Wow, that is really interesting. So you started tennis when you were 6. So how did you manage to balance both academics and training into your everyday life?
I was very fortunate to have a school and parents who were willing to help me through that. And I say this to every athlete and every child in that, for that matter. Time management is the best thing you can do for yourself if you want to succeed. So for me, I had to balance out my hours day to day to ensure that everything that was a priority was being taken care of. If there was something that I could let go of, whether it was a party or it was, an hour of fitness to accommodate to a tuition or whatever it was, the ability to manage my time and prioritize the things that were necessary to prioritize in that moment was the only way I could do it. And of course, my parents were super helpful. They kept me on the straight and narrow, and school was a big part of teaching you time management as well.
So as you know, like sports requires a lot of support from home. So you being from a family of all tennis players, how did they react when they discovered that you were also going to have tennis as a very large part of your life?
They were scared. Like every parent is, no parent is going to, want their child to get into a career that's uncertain. And sports is a very uncertain career, both from a playing standpoint and a working standpoint. First of all, in India, we don't understand the concept of working in sports. That's not something that, at least when I was growing up, was known. So for my parents, they were like, okay, if you want to become a tennis player, you have to be top of the top to actually make money. And if you're not doing that, how are you going to sustain your life? And if you want to work in sports, what does that mean? Are you a coach? Are you a fitness coach? What do you do? So for my parents, as supportive as they were also not well informed about what a career in sports could look like.
Hmm.
And once I decided that, I want to be a tennis player and potentially work in tennis, they were super nervous because one's an electrical engineer, the other is a financial analyst.
Hmm.
My mom's an accountant and analyst. So for them, they were like, we're super educated background, and here's a child who doesn't want to do math, doesn't want to do science, and instead wants to spend 8 hours a day on the tennis court. How does that work? So it was a learning process for us to try and one, understand what I want, learn how the system works, both on the professional circuit, in the college circuit, in the working circuit, and then, come to a conclusion that, yeah, let's give it a shot. If this is my desire and this is my passion, might as well give it a try.
So you were sure of it from the beginning that you wanted to do tennis in life.
I knew I would work in sports if I didn't play sports professionally. I
Hmm.
always knew that. In fact, this is a really cliched story I will tell you, but when I was in ninth grade,
Hmm.
I actually wrote it down in a book of mine. I wrote the exact words: if I don't become a professional athlete, I will work in professional sports.
Hmm.
And that was all that I wrote. And I always tell people this and they think I'm lying, but it's true.
Hmm.
And from there, I became sports captain in school for 2 years. And I had the opportunity to, host sports day. And when you host sports day in school, I'm sure you know about this as
Yeah.
well. You're in school right now. And you've been house captain. So you understand what this means. For sports day, I had to figure out, okay, we have to get a venue organized. We have to get vendors, lighting, food, credentials, who's allowed in, tickets, all of these things. And I learned how to manage those things. And when I learned how to manage those things, that was my first initiation into sports management, which I didn't even realize. You think it's such a small thing, but that's sports management. And that's what I learned.
Wow. What role did your teachers and your parents play in your learning journey, or when you were disappointed because of some outcome? How did they help you through that?
I think they pushed me to realize that every day is a new day. So when it came to my teachers, one thing that teachers did really well was make me realize that tennis is not everything. I came to school, I was a normal student like everybody else who was sitting in class, who had exams, who had grades, who was expected to do well. And that kind of makes you realize that life is bigger than sports. For me, as a 15-year-old, 14-year-old girl who was playing tennis pretty much every single day, 8 hours a day, my whole life revolved around tennis. When I did well, I was very happy. When I did badly, I was very sad. And every other area of my life was affected by that result. So my teachers did a really good job in kind of making me realize that, it's okay. It's just a match. It's not life or death. It's just a match. And tomorrow you'll have another opportunity. My parents did the same thing. So I think that really helped me kind of realize that there's a balance that needs to be there between work and life, between sports and life.
So, in the later stages of your career, you took part in something called NCAA Division 1 tennis. So, for those who may not know this, what exactly is it? What are the challenges in it? And, what made you want to join this particular thing?
So, when you're graduating school, you have two options as an athlete. Either you turn into a professional sports person or you quit. Those are the two things that you can do, right? Because you can't study and play sports at the same time. I'm sure everyone knows this. Here's something that we discovered kind of out of the blue is a concept called the NCAA, which is the National Collegiate Athletic Association. It's the governing body of college sports in America. So the American college sports system is, think, just short of the professional circuit. A lot of players who come out of the college athletic system end up going and becoming professional athletes today. So my dad and I kind of discovered this. We were talking about it. My dad went to college in the US, so he knew about it. We did our research. We spoke to people. We went to America. We flew down to a bunch of colleges, tried to talk to coaches, and pretty much winged the process ourselves. And what we discovered was it's a system that allows aspiring athletes to play sports at the highest level while also getting an education.
Okay.
So there's three divisions. There's Division 1, Division 2, and Division 3. Division 1 being your most prestigious one, the highest level of sports in college sports. And pretty much most of the athletes that start playing professionally come from Division 1. And you get the most amount of scholarships, the most amount of, luxury, as you say, in Division 1. And then Division 3 is probably for the players that know that they don't want to play professionally but still want to continue playing sports for a few extra years. So I played Division 1 tennis at a university in New York. And we actually never visited that school. So Dad and I winged the process. We got in, and I took 2 suitcases from New Delhi to Staten Island, New York, which I'm sure you can't even find on a map. And that was my journey to the US. And I've been there the last 10 years and just moved back to India.
So, what was the biggest adjustment you made when you moved from India to US? It's a very big thing at a young age.
Absolutely. I think adapting to the American culture was very difficult for me. You meet people from all walks of life. My teammates, we had a Peruvian player, we had someone from Australia, we had someone from New Zealand, we had someone from India. Putting all of these people from around the world in one team, it was a huge adjustment. But even more than that, the adjustment was actually being in American culture. The food that they eat, the way they talk, their English, their accent, the way they communicate, all those things were alien to me. I didn't even know how to, use their vending machines or the microwave or the washing machines. All those things we as Indian kids aren't really taught, right? So for me, the biggest adjustment was learning to live on my own in a foreign country. But the fortunate part is when you go to school for the purpose of sports, you have teammates, and teammates become like family to you. So I met a group of 8 girls who I played tennis with, again, from all walks of life, that really helped me adapt to the American culture, to college. And that was the best thing I could have asked for.
So, did you ever feel like, I don't want to do this anymore, or it's too much, I want to go back? So, how did you get back from that, state of mind?
Yeah. I mean, the tennis part was easy. The 40 hours a week of playing tennis, fitness, 3 hours of training, traveling to matches, all of that actually felt easy in comparison to being thousands of miles away from home. That's the tough part, is you miss birthdays, you miss family dinners, you miss, Diwali, you miss Holi, you miss everything. And as athletes, I missed summer break, I missed winter break because I was traveling for tennis. So the tough part was realizing that my parents and my background, whoever has supported me, has put in a lot of effort to get me where I am. So I better make the most of it. And that's the mentality I kept with me throughout my time in America, was I'm here for the purpose of making the most of my time here. It's not easy nor cheap to send your child halfway across the world, even on a scholarship. So for me, the biggest driving factor and what motivated me to get out of that mindset was, this is your opportunity to do something great for the people that have supported you. And that's what I tried to do.
So, since you've been playing sports for such a long time now, sports often comes with a lot of losses, a lot of tough setbacks. So, what was this one moment that really tested your resilience, and what did you learn from it?
COVID. So in 2020, it was my last semester of college, which means my last season of tennis. And I was playing really well, probably on the brink of turning professional at that point. And long story short, we were preparing for a match the next day, and we got a call in the morning saying school's shutting down. Everyone leave. And that was a turning point, not just of my sport, that was a turning point in life. Because what I had thought the trajectory of my life would be like as a tennis player flipped overnight. And I packed up 4 years of life and took a flight back to India before the world shut down. So that was kind of the moment that I realized that it's going to be a tough road ahead, because I was so used to identifying myself as a tennis player. Every party I went to, everywhere I went, even in school when I went for like alumni events and stuff, everyone was like, oh, the tennis player, you're Vedika, the tennis player. And suddenly I was no longer identified as a tennis player. So who was I? So I had a huge identity crisis at that point. I had a breakdown in the sense that I was so burnt out from playing tennis for so many years. I started at the age of 6 and I didn't know what to do with my life. and I was lost. So I came home and I don't think I got out of bed for almost a week. And that was the toughest setback I had.
So COVID is what kind of prevented you from being a professional tennis player?
I guess not fully prevented. I could have still continued to
Hmm.
play COVID, but I think it was a point where, as a family, we decided that this was it. You know, everyone had put in so much time, effort, and money into building me into a player. By the time I reached that stage, we realized, you know, one, I wasn't good enough to turn professional and make it to the top. Yeah, I could have played my way up, but that would have been 5 to 10 years of hard travel, training, grinding for someone who wasn't certain that they were going to make it. And I knew that. I knew that I wasn't going to be world number one, even if I wanted to be world number one. So I had that reality check in mind. And so as a family, we decided, this is the right time to give it up because everything had stopped. The tournaments had stopped happening at that point. The world had flipped around. And so we kind of decided that was a good moment to reset.
So, most people think sport is only about becoming a player. Like, that's the only career you can have in sport. So, can you share some off field moment that really redefines people's way of thinking about careers in sport?
Yeah, I mean, that's my entire life now. So definitely, let's transition into the work side of sports. So when COVID happened, I was like, okay, I kind of need to figure out what next. And I knew one thing. I knew I was good at sports and I understood sports really well. So how do you build a career out of it? Now, I didn't realize that there were a lot of jobs in sports outside of just playing and coaching, outside of playing, outside of coaching. There's a whole business world out there when it comes to sports. There's agents, there's managers, there's leagues that happen like IPL, ISL, Pro Kabaddi. So, who organizes those? There's media, broadcasting, where we watch sports happen, right? Everyone was watching the World Cup recently. Where did we watch it? Geo Hotstar, Sony Sports, Star Sports. Those are your media outlets. And then you have brands. You have your different brands that make apparel or nutrition brands, supplement brands, all of them investing in sports. So here's a whole world that is part of the sports ecosystem outside of just playing. When you watch a match, you see just the player. You don't notice the person who's sitting behind them, the person who's sitting in the umpire chair, the person who's done all the production, the person who got the clothes put on that player. That's all a business. So slowly and steadily, I started reading and learning more about the business side of sports and realized that that could be an avenue to get into the world of sports. And my first job was at a university in the US. And I basically had to build a program to help the athletes of that college prepare for life after sports is over. So how cool is that? Because I did that for myself. So I taught them networking tips, resume building. We did a lot of career coaching for them. We had stalls of companies come and speak to these athletes and essentially prepare them to do things outside of just what the sport they're playing is. So that was my first job. And from there, it was quite certain that I'm going to work in sports.
There's a lot of things that go on behind the field that none of us, they deserve a lot of more recognition, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about it from a large scale perspective. When you're hosting a big sporting event, you have people checking you in, right? Guest access, someone's letting you in. You have those credentials that everyone gets that somebody's scanning the QR code for. That's also a sports job. Someone who's handling all the hotels where the players are staying is also a sports job. Someone who runs a transport company where the players go from the hotel to the venue, venue to the hotel is also a sports job. And we don't realize that while these people are not in the inner orbit of the player, like they're probably not the ones taking selfies with the players every day, they are still part of the sporting ecosystem. So outside of just the player who's playing and the coach who's standing there is a whole world of business and revenue that goes around sports.
So there are different organizations for this that do exactly that, right? So you were a part of the Professional Tennis Players Association. What have you learned from joining these global organizations?
Yeah, so I started my first global sports career was actually at the US Open. And then I moved to the Professional Tennis Players Association right after. And both places, one thing I learned was if you want to work with athletes, you have to stop being a fan. We all get into working in sports because we're fans of sports, right? You want to be the person who's standing behind Virat Kohli. You want to be the person who's standing behind a big cricketer or a big tennis player and being the person who manages them, right? But most people don't have the ability to be in that inner orbit when they're starting their career. And I didn't either. So I got a job at the US Open in what we call player relations, which means when players come to the US Open, anything and everything that they need is managed by a team, right? Escorts, who's the person who takes them from their locker room to the court? That's an escort. Player services, okay, a player wants to go to a restaurant at night. Can somebody recommend a restaurant? That's a player services person. Practice court desk. Players are practicing every morning, every evening before their matches. We have a practice court desk that people are managing. So there's so many different roles that happen. My job was essentially to manage this team of 200 people that come to work in front of the players at US Open. So in that capacity, I met agents, coaches, players from all over the world. And I essentially started networking. So every time I would meet someone, and if they had 5 to 10 minutes to spare, I would ask them, hey, can I talk to you for 5 minutes about my work? I'd love to know about your career, how you got to where you are. And that's how I learned about different jobs. That's how I learned about how the business works and made my way up to the Professional Tennis Players Association, which now for 3 years I worked with them. It was started by Novak Djokovic, and I've been traveling for 30 weeks on the road on the tennis tour. So from Wimbledon to French Open to Australian Open and all the big crazy tennis tournaments that you see on TV. My job is essentially to make players' lives easier and advocate for them. And the best piece of advice I could give from what I've learned at these global companies that I've worked at is if you want to work in sports, passion will get you in, but learning the sports business will keep you there.
What was like the difference between when you initially started out and where you are now? Like, what was the difference in what you did?
I think the biggest difference was when I initially started out, I networked a lot. I had to learn a lot. For me, I was getting into it because I was passionate. I didn't know, how does money flow? How does sponsorships work? How does media rights work? There was so many nuances that I was unaware of. I thought, it's just what, like, I just knew surface level things. So when I initially got into it, I was basically a headless chicken running around. Just, okay, I'll take on this job and I'll take on that job. And someone wants, Serena Williams wants her laundry picked up. I'll do that also. Some player wants gummy bears. I'll go get that also. So I was doing everything and anything. Now, of course, now that I'm 6 years into working in sports, I have the leverage to be like, I want to do this type of a job and not this type of a job. So it's given me that little bit of credibility and leverage now that I've built a network for myself.
So after 6 years into this, you also started your own platform, which is at Fit with Ved. So what inspired you to start sharing your journey online to so many people?
Yeah, so Fit with Ved actually started during COVID. Remember that 1 week I was telling you about when I was in bed and I was absolutely out of it? It's because I didn't know where else to put my energy. And because I spent so much time doing fitness and strength and conditioning, I started Fit with Ved with the intention of making it a fitness platform, which is so funny because it's not a fitness platform at all anymore. So Fit with Ved started about 6 years ago when COVID hit. And we were, I was working out on the terrace and I was like, I know how to work out. I understand how an athlete works out. So I'll share that. And I started sharing tips on training and how athletes train. This is how a cricketer trains, and this is how a footballer trains, this is how a tennis player trains. And I started putting it on Instagram. Slowly, as I started to work in sports, I started to see that a lot of people wanted to know more about what I do for work. How to land a job in sports became the tagline for my entire platform. And that's kind of what skyrocketed the page in the beginning. And once that happened, now it's become my media vertical to essentially promote sports in India. And I don't use it as an influencer, really. I use it as a way to give me credibility for any future business that I start. So tomorrow, if I decide to start a supplement company, okay, Myra, I want to start making protein water. Now, if I want to start making protein water, I need investors. I need people to buy it. How am I going to do that? How am I going to reach people? Through Fit with Ved. And that's the whole point of the platform now.
What advice would you like to give to someone who wants to start working in the sports industry? They do not know much about it, but are just really interested in the sport management part of it.
Yeah, two things. One, I would say again, going back to the networking piece, the best thing you can do for yourself is learn from people that are in those jobs. For example, you're in class 10 right now. If you were someone who wants to work in sports, I would encourage you to go and reach someone who's just started working in sports. You know, that person who's in an entry level position in sports, because they probably understand exactly what you're looking for. If you go and chase a CEO of front office sports or ESPN or US Open, it's going to be very difficult for that person to give you viable advice. But if you go to someone who's just started in the industry, they are probably understanding where you are better than anybody else because they were in your place not so long ago, right? So I started doing that as well. I started reaching out to people that were just above me in the hierarchy of sports industry. And they kind of gave me the tips that I needed. And networking is one thing that I preach to everyone. It's tough because you're really just cold messaging and emailing people all the time, but only one of them has to help you. So you reach out to 5 people that you think are doing jobs that you would want to do. And I'm sure one of them will be receptive enough to say, sure, let me have a conversation with this young person and see how I can help them. So networking would be my first tip. And the second, read. The Indian sports industry is booming right now with the Commonwealth Games in 2030, with the potential Olympics in 2036. Understanding the sports industry in India is vital to work in it. So read articles, watch reels about it, watch YouTube videos, learn how you can break down the back end part of sports. If we're watching IPL, for example, who puts the logos behind the jerseys? Who's filming these players on the field? Who's getting all the sponsorship deals for them? Which agency is it? So understanding the back end side is very important. And the best way you can do that is by reading, learn more.
So you mentioned player relations before. So does all of this come under it, or is it a separate branch completely?
So player relations is slightly separate. It's one of the things you can do in sports. And it's one of the hardest things to do in sports because you're the person who's closest to the athlete. And most of those player relations jobs are very hard to find. Like you will never see a LinkedIn post of a player relations job because most of the time, what player relations means is athlete management. You're taking care of the athlete. And athletes want people around them that they can trust. So a lot of times, athletes will keep the same agent, the same player relations person for years with them because it's a trust process. Or athletes sometimes also have people doing player relations that are related to them, like their friends or someone they grew up with, or a parent or someone like that. So while player relations can be a future goal for some people, I think the best way to get into the industry is operations. So say if tomorrow there's a local football league happening in Bombay, I would say, Myra, if you want to work in sports, go volunteer there. You know, be the person who handles transportation or handles the hotel desk or handles, the sign-ups for the players or jersey distribution, anything. At least it gets you inside the orbit. That's how you're going to meet people, right? So operations is probably the best way to get into any role in sports.
So player relations comes afterwards. So it's like a second step kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a second step. They don't have to be connected. Like some people, for example, get into operations and stay in operations. They like setting up the field. They like being the person that paints the lines or who gets the lights on in the morning or cleans the place or the stage is being set by somebody. That's all operational work. Player relations, you could be someone who knows a player from before, right? Maybe, for example, I grew up playing tennis and my best friend who plays tennis with me became a global superstar tennis player. For her, she's like, oh, Vedika's working in sports. I think she'll be a great person to do player relations for me. I'd rather have her do it. Then I can get into player relations much easier. But if you're someone who's not connected to any athlete, then getting into their orbit, it's much easier to get in by getting into an operations job first. So yeah, they can be connected, but they can also be completely separate, if that helps.
So you discovered your passion at a really young age. So there are many students who are still very confused about what they want to do. Many of them want to go into sports, but they are not sure where it could take them. So what is one piece of advice that you would like to give to them?
Confusion is not a bad thing. Confusion doesn't mean that you can't build a career from it. In fact, if you're confused, I think that means you're curious about multiple things. So, even when I was younger, I knew I wanted to work in sports, but what to do in sports, even I didn't know, right? So, you try multiple things. And the good part about the Indian sports industry is it's small. So, most companies, they're very small. Even the teams that they don't have that many people. And when you have lean teams, if you have, say, 3 to 4 people working there, they're likely doing multiple jobs, right? Maybe I've been hired to do social media marketing for a football organization. As a social media marketing person, it's very likely that I'm also booking travel for these players, that I'm also handling credentials, that I'm also handling tickets, that I'm also doing filming content for them. So you're doing multiple jobs. When you give someone the ability to do multiple things, it's the best way for them to discover which one they like more and which one they don't. So I don't think being confused is a bad thing. You can have your top 3 or 4 options. Say, I want to work in sports. I want to do analytics, IT, finance, and operations. Okay, fine. Try all 4. Volunteer for a league that lets you do just IT work. Volunteer for a league that lets you do operations. Try all 4 and then decide which one you like most. That's the best way to do it.
So where do you think the Indian sports industry is kind of lacking, or how can they, be better or improve?
I think one thing about the Indian sports industry is it's still developing. So, a lot of young people wanting to get into sports, their biggest concern is can we sustain a living off of working in the Indian sports industry? And the answer is very slowly changing to yes. For a long time, when you were working in investment banking, consulting, finance, you're making a significantly higher amount than your people that are working in the sports industry. Now, it's slowly changing. I wouldn't say it's there yet, but it's slowly changing because we're seeing a lot of leagues coming up. We're seeing a lot of non sports investors wanting to build things in sports. We're seeing a lot of startups in sports. And with the introduction of AI in sports, the ability to make an income has gone up slightly. So I think that's a piece that's still lacking, but changing. And the second thing I would say is because it's a developing market, one piece that is still not developed is the gap between sponsorships return on investment. So what I mean by that is brands want to work in sports and athletes want to make money off of brands. But there's no middle person who understands how to give brands exactly what they want from a return perspective and give athletes what they want from a brand perspective. So if you're in that middle phase of being the person who understands both brands and athletes, you will be very successful. We're just not there yet.
We've received a few questions from the audience through our website and social media, and I'll be asking you some of them now. What signs should parents look for if a child is genuinely serious about pursuing sports professionally?
I don't think parents are the ones that need to make that decision. The only sign that parents need to see is your child's desire. Watch how much your child wants to do it themselves. How much are you pushing them versus how much initiative are they taking themselves? That's the first sign. Anything else from a technical standpoint should come from their coach, not the parents. So surround your child with coaches and people and mentors that you can trust and they can trust, and rely on their expertise to give you signs. That would be my advice.
So, looking back, is there something you wish you had known earlier while building your career in sports?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I understood the industry a little bit better. There's so many nuances to it that we are yet to understand. And all of us think that, sports is a career-based passion, is a passion-based career. It's a business-based career. So the sooner you realize that a big part of sports is revenue generation and learning how money flows, you'll be more successful in the industry.
What is one lesson sport has taught you that applies to life and career?
It's not that big of a deal. Everything is small in the grand scheme of things. Every match is just one match. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world.
What are some misconceptions that people have about working in the sports industry?
Everyone thinks I sit and watch tennis matches all day long. When I'm at Wimbledon, I'm like sitting in the stands and clapping for players while they're playing. Actually, that's so far from the truth. And I'll tell you this, Myra, In the 5 years or 6 years I've been working in tennis, I have never watched a complete live tennis match.
Really?
Never. I've maybe watched one set or I've maybe watched one tie break, but most of the time I'm behind the scenes running around, problem solving, crisis management. I'm not the person who actually gets to just sit and watch matches courtside.
How early should students start thinking about preparing a career in sports management, events, or consulting?
Not soon. I think that as a developing child or someone who wants to work in sports, think of getting a degree or learning the skills of business first. You can learn the generic business skills and then specialize in sports. It doesn't have to be the other way around. You don't want to close yourself off just in the sports industry. Get a business degree, learn the skills of being a business person, and then you can specialize in sports. Because then if you realize that, maybe sports is not the career for me, you can always pivot to something else because you have the generic skills of being a business person.
How do you see the sports industry evolving in the next 10 to 15 years, especially for young professionals entering the field today?
I think we're going to be seeing a lot more entrepreneurs, a lot more freelancers, a lot more content creators in the sports industry. We're already seeing it. And of course, this is a generic one, but we're going to see AI taking over a lot of sports jobs. I don't think AI is going to take over, but it's going to enhance sports jobs for sure.
Before we end, we also have a small rapid fire round.
Okay, let's go.
The
I'm
first
ready.
question is, favorite tennis player of all time?
Roger Federer.
What is one pre-match ritual or superstition that you still follow?
Ooh, looking at myself in the mirror and talking, self-talk.
A mentor who really inspires you?
I would say my mom, Anisha.
If you had to describe your journey in one word, what would it be?
Resilient.
If not a career in sport, then what career would you choose?
I think I would be a singer. That's another thing in my family is where we have a lot of classical Indian singers in my family. So probably a singer.
So that was the end of the rapid fire. What an inspiring and insightful conversation this has been. It's conversations like these that really show us how many different paths a career can take. Vedika ma'am, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us and giving us a glimpse of the different types of careers that exist in the field of sport, both on and off the court. At Billabong High International School, learning goes far beyond the classroom, and it's conversations like these that help us explore new ideas, careers, and passions. Thank you for joining us and inspiring us to keep exploring our ideas and for conveying a small message. The most exciting journeys are the ones that don't follow the usual path.